Okay, this is fun for me. We're in the Media Filing Center at the United Nations, the UN General Assembly, and look who I have run into.
Hayvi Bouzo, and I'm the bureau chief of Orient News, based in Washington, D.C., and I have a weekly TV show called The Access.
And where are you from originally?
I'm from Syria. I'm Syrian American Kurdish.
And how long have you been in Washington, D.C.?
I've been in D.C. for 7 years now.
What do you think of Washington?
I like it. I used to live in LA, so I like the weather in LA more, but I love Washington. It has a lot of culture, the museums, and politics.
What interests you most about the UN General Assembly this year?
Well, this year I see a lot more American officials present here. I feel like there's much more drive in the administration to do more coverage and interest in foreign policy. So I feel it's a bit more serious, and probably there's a lot of tension going on, as we all know, with Iran. The Iranian president is going to be here, and Russia, and many others. So I'm anticipating and looking forward to seeing what's going to happen, especially tomorrow.
All right, like Voice America, you broadcast all over the world. What countries? Name some.
Voice of America?
No, name some of the countries you broadcasted.
Oh, so we broadcast in Europe, so people can watch us in Germany, France, Sweden, but they have to speak Arabic because we dub everything to Arabic. We try to bridge the gap. I think this is one of our main missions, to bridge the gap between the United States and the Middle East, but we definitely broadcast in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, Jordan, and Egypt. So those are, main Arab countries, but all over the Middle East and North Africa.
How long has it been since you've been in Syria?
7 years ago. So I actually fled Syria after the revolution started. I had to flee for my life, and because I'm a journalist, it's something that you cannot be doing in Syria. Yeah, it's been a long time, and I know that a lot changed since the last I've seen it. I can only imagine.
It's terrible. I was in Iraq recently, in the Kurdish region adjacent to Syria, and all the refugees were pouring out of Syria.
Yes, it's a devastating situation, and you've seen it in your own eyes. For people who haven't seen it, it's beyond our comprehension, the tragedy of the losses of people who had got imputated, parents, orphans, no home, no schools. Very important, the school and the education. It's a disaster.
Well, the issue of Syria here at the UN General Assembly is an important one because of Iran, Israel, Russia.
Yes.
So it's a headliner here.
Yes, it is, and especially now that Russia declared that they want to give the missiles S-300 to the Assad regime as a response. My expectation is that Russia will have control over the Syrian defense system, and maybe that would be a good thing, especially that Israel and the United States, I don't expect that they're going to sit there quietly. And the launching of missiles against the Iranian militia bases in Syria, I hope it continues by Israel because it's very needed.
In the United States, we have freedom of the press, and the American media is quite protected. You talked a bit about having to escape and being a journalist. What's it like to be a journalist in Syria?
Oh, it doesn't exist, Greta. I mean, I had a radio show in English. That was the first English radio show in Syria. And I said one thing about Jerry Seinfeld because his mom is a Syrian Jew, and I was proud of him. And they attacked me, and I got cut off the show, and I lost my job basically because of one comment. So we don't have journalism in Syria. We have just state-sponsored so-called media station, and it's kind of like almost a joke, even for the people inside of Syria. They know that this is not news, but it's completely controlled by the Assad regime.
Well, that makes it difficult for journalists to get in and to report, so for the world to know what's good, bad, or indifferent going on in Syria when we can't get in and report freely.
Yeah, exactly. It's impossible. That's why you have to be you have people on the ground telling you what's happening who are undercover. This is basically the only way to get news. And then you have the other areas where outside of the Assad regime-controlled areas, and somewhat there's a little bit more freedom for those reporters, if they are safe enough from the barrel bombs and the chemical weapons, that they can report on what's going on.
It's hard to imagine how those people endure those barrel bombs and what goes on day in and day out.
Yes, it's really hard to imagine. I mean, I used to be in a country where nothing was happening, and I would look at other countries and say, oh my God, how could it feel like? How would it feel like to be in this devastating situation? And now I'm from Syria, and I see all of what's happening, and I know the people there because I was raised there, and it's just beyond imagination. It's just, you know, you have to imagine yourself in that position, and it's just really terrifying, especially for children.
You want to go back?
I hope so. And one day I want to. I have 2 kids, and I want to show them, and I want to show my husband where I was born, and I know it will happen. I don't know when, but I am optimistic about the future.
If you went back tomorrow, what would happen?
I would be killed.
You really think you'd be killed?
Yes, by the Assad regime, definitely, immediately.
Anyway, thank you very much, and
Thank you so much.
love to
Greta.
meet you.
I always watch you on television, so thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.